when you purchase the QuickBooks. And this way it keeps track of everything that's going on. Oops. Sorry about that. And then, so the business name. So I'm just going to put myself in there. So Kelly A. Dawson, CPA. And then the industry is accounting. So QuickBooks has this nice little platform where you can actually pick the industry that matches your company. And what it does is it populates the chart of accounts for you. So as you can see, there's a whole list of items on the industry side. Try to find the one that best suits your business. If not, they're so nice and they give you this general product-based business or general service-based business, and it will give you some basic accounts. You can always delete and add the chart of accounts as you feel needed, and we'll go over that as well. So I'm going to do accounting and bookkeeping, and then I'm going to say, okay, business type. So I give you a little 101 on accounting and tax while I do this class. So today we're going to set up a single member LLC. A single member LLC is no different than being a sole proprietor, except for the fact that the LLC gives you that legal protection of your own personal assets. And I'm going to use that one, but I'm going to go through the other ones right now. So a partnership and a multi-member LLC are very similar as well. The multi-member LLC is probably more used these days than a normal or a traditional old partnership. Corporation, of course, is like your big incorporated. We call them C corporations. You have shareholders, people are employees. And then your S corporations are also incorporated. They have shareholders, and the difference between a corporation and an S corporation is the shareholders in the S corporation actually they take the income from the S corp trickles down to their personal tax return and they pay the tax, whereas the C corporation actually pays the tax on the income that it generates. And then of course we all know what nonprofits are. So I'm going to pick this single member LLC. And of course, it's going to ask for the admin's email. This is protection when you're going through setting up the file and when you're acquiring any add-ons so that someone just doesn't randomly add things to your account without you knowing. You can fill in all of this other information. What it does, it'll populate it on your invoices. It will also populate it on any forms if you choose to use QuickBooks for, say, payroll or credit card receiving, so then you don't have to keep entering it. I'm only going to enter my address today. Oops, hello, I gotta read the right numbers here. Let's see, zip code 14701. All right, and then creates the company, and it should do it pretty quickly because it's empty. I do, while this is going, I must say I like the Zoom feature and Karina going through and asking what everybody does as a business, because in the classroom setting, most people don't want to talk about it, or they're really quiet, or they're drinking their coffee, or they're playing with their phone. So Karina, that was very nice. I appreciated learning about a few of the people that were on the Zoom, even though we ran out of time.
It's just nice to see everybody's, I know it makes it more personable.
It does.
Question, can you create multiple companies with one QuickBooks license?
Yes, you can. So you just keep creating as many as you want in there. I'll tell you, that's how I use the QuickBooks. My client, I have probably 50 QuickBooks bookkeeping clients, and they're all on different versions. So one of the other things that I'm glad you asked that question is if you have a client, if you're working on a client and they use 2017, oops, hold on, I'm gonna have to grab this. Oh, Because this isn't too bad. Oh, well. So sorry, I don't know where that was going to because it didn't come to me. So if versions of QuickBooks is very important. If I have a client that's on 2017 and I pull them into my 2020 QuickBooks, I cannot give it back to them because you have to stay at the same year of QuickBooks version for it to be able to be transferred back and forth. So if you share your file with your accountant, make sure you let them know what version of QuickBooks you are using if you want to be able to make it efficient and receive the journal entries back from your accountant where you don't have to enter them back and forth. So you can always go up, you just can't go back down in your years. So I'm going to start over here on file. Like I said, I like to use the across the top menu. You also have the shortcuts to the left-hand side of the screen that you can get to. And you also have what they call the home page. And so sometimes the home page is much easier for people who are not accountants and for who are starting out. So it puts things, put processes together so that you don't get confused. So for example, vendors, you enter bills and you pay your bills. Customers, you create invoices for your customers, you receive the payments, you send them statements. And if you have employees, and we're not going to do employees today, or we're not going to do inventory, but I will point these things out. You enter their time, and then you would also turn on the payroll. Over here, you have the chart of accounts, and you have your items and services. You also have a calendar. And then banking is everything related to banking, writing checks, your check register, and it looks just like the register that you receive from the bank if you still actually use that old fashioned. I do both my check register and my QuickBooks because sometimes I'm not fast enough to get into the QuickBooks. You can print, you can do your reconcile, and you can record your deposits. So on file, couple things here. If you're getting a company file from your accountant, or if you're getting it from another company, you can use these features, open and restore. The one thing I'm going to show you today, or two things I'm going to show you today, is your backing up of your company. Make sure you back it up. If you don't have an offsite backup, you may want to back it up to a thumb drive so that it's not on your computer, or back it up to the cloud. So just make sure to go through the backup and then create a local backup. And then you can do local here or online, and then you just pick where you want to put it. So it could be on your C drive, if you have a server, as I do, which gets backed up, or you could put it on a USB drive, or you can do the online if you're going to use the QuickBooks. And then you can set up some features to have it delete after so many versions are on your thumb drive. And then the other one I like to show to people is this create copy, because this time of the year, you're getting ready to send your information to your accountant. And we like it in different versions. Some of us like backups. I actually like the portable company file myself. My clients refuse to do their own journal entries, so I need to be able to access it, do the journal entries, and then I just make journal entries on their version when I go into their office. So this portable company file actually provides me a company file that's kind of like a zip file. It makes it smaller, so you can email it or put it in Dropbox or whatever file sharing program you use. And then accountant's copy is the one that I was talking about, making sure you're in the same version. This copy allows you to send your accountant a copy of your QuickBooks to a certain date. So normally you would have it through the end of your year, so 12/31/2020, which means you can no longer work on anything before that date and before, but you can continue working in your file after that date. Your accountant can only work on things 12/31/2020 and before, and cannot do anything going forward. This is probably the easiest way to communicate with your accountant if you get nervous about doing journal entries, or if you think you set up your QuickBooks in a fashion that your accountant needs to make some changes for you that you're not comfortable making yourself. So you just go through the process of this and make the copy and then save it to your desktop. And again, either email it to them or throw it through the file share program that you use. And then this is where if you get multiple licenses for your QuickBooks, you want to switch to multi-user mode. And then this way you and your other users can be in the file at the same time. And then utilities is another item that I like to use. And this is where you can import and export items. So sometimes you might get something from your bank feeds. I like to use the bank feeds for my clients. I go into their bank account and then I do a QBO, which is the download of bank information transactions from the bank website. And then I import it and then you just use this Web Connect files. Go find the file that you actually downloaded and it will populate all of the banking activity into the QuickBooks. If you're not familiar with QuickBooks, I probably wouldn't suggest you do Web Connect right away. I would have you get familiarized with the QuickBooks first, and then you can become more efficient with the Web Connect because you need to understand where the activities are flowing. So you need to know where your deposits are going and when your checks are going. So, and then export is kind of nice when you want to send things out to either decrease your number of vendors. Maybe you want to send a customer list out to make a Christmas card list. You can do it in many fashions. These IIF files are specific to QuickBooks. So you want to be careful when you're doing that. Maybe you set up your company file, you're playing around and you really totally messed it up and you don't want to try and fix it and you want to start it all over again, but you want to keep your customer file. Then you can switch that customer file to the IIF and then bring it into a new QuickBooks file. Oops. Oh. Okay. Must be in the trying to export. Oh, there it is. Sorry. Me and my multiple screens, it keeps going somewhere. So there's the export files that you can export out and we'll get into those. They probably look Greek now if you haven't been into QuickBooks yet, but later on they'll make more sense to you. So edit is one of the other items that I like to go, the menus I like to go through. Find in QuickBooks, the Control F feature is my favorite feature in QuickBooks. When I get a call from a client, and oftentimes I dial in, I use LogMeIn to get into my client's QuickBooks so I don't have to have it on my computer. And then if they have a problem, I log in and I say, okay, what is it you can't find? So you can see that the feature says Control F. And then, so what happens is that you come up with this lovely screen and you can do a simple if you want. My favorite is just going straight to advanced because oftentimes the client knows what they've recorded as the dollar amount, but they don't remember how it got recorded. So if you go in here and you say an amount equal to, and then you put in the dollar, of course, there's nothing in there right now, but later on I'll come back to this find feature to show you it. And then you hit the find button and it will populate everything that shows up as $100. And then you can double click on those and go and see if you need to fix them. Right. And then the one other thing in preferences, and then we'll get down to some business. Preferences is where you kind of set up your QuickBooks to be how you like it and how you like it for your company. So there's a My Preferences tab, which is specific to you and your login. And then there's a company preference, which is specific to the whole company file, and everybody has to conform to that preference. So I'm going to start up in the accounting one. There are none that they allow you in accounting for your personal. So require accounts is obvious. You have to have a place to put all of your activity, so you must have accounts. What is a preference is if you like to use account numbers. I would say that most of my sole proprietors don't use the account numbers, they just use the names. The nice thing about QuickBooks is once you start typing something, it will populate the account or the name based on how you start typing, and if it starts to match the first couple letters or numbers of the transaction. Class tracking, and I'll briefly go over this just for those who might use it. And the easiest way to explain this one is, let's say you have an Airbnb business and you have multiple properties and you want to keep track of the different properties. You would use this class tracking. So the classes would be the properties that you own, and that would be how you would set them up. So you would set up, say, 4788 Lake Street, and that would be a class. You don't set up the accounts under that way. You use the same account. So I have rental income, and then I use the classes to track the different rental income between them. So I would set up 4788, I would use rental income, it would go to that class. Now let's say I have 69 Portage, I would use that same class tracking, use 69, I would use rental income. So one chart of account, multiple classes, because the last thing you want to do is have your chart of account be 18 pages long because you have rental income for Lake House and you have rental income for Portage. So class helps you to keep your chart of accounts to a minimum. I always tell my clients, leave these transaction days in the past and in the future checked, especially this time of the year when we've switched the calendar over and some of us still haven't gotten used to typing in 2021. Because if you put something in at the wrong date, and then you're going to drive yourself crazy because you can't find it and you don't know where it is. This will warn you that you've put something in the past or in the future. And then one of my other favorite features of QuickBooks is this lovely closing date. QuickBooks rolls forward monthly and annually without having to go through what accountants call a closing process. That's a great thing for the people who are using the QuickBooks, not oftentimes a great thing for accountants who are doing tax returns. And then the client doesn't realize that if they go and switch something in 2020 after we've done the tax return, they're really messing up the books on us. So when I'm done doing the year-end financials and the tax return for a client, I sneak into their QuickBooks. I don't really sneak in, I tell them. And I set the date and the password for the year. And I do it for the closing date of the end of the calendar year. And I would just pick 12/31. And then I set a closing date password. I don't tell the person that's in charge of the QuickBooks because I don't want them to get in and make adjustments without my knowledge. I do tell someone else in the company, just in case I get hit by the beer truck crossing 2nd Street in front of my office, because I don't want them to not be able to get into their QuickBooks in the past. So that's a very important feature that you may want to do yourself if you don't have the control to stop yourself from changing something in the prior year. It also helps you because you may not realize that you're switching something in the prior year if you don't have an accounting background. So you can go through all of these preferences and set them up however you want to. The other one that I like to look at is general. And then this one lets you pick a couple different things if you want to show your years and then saving your transactions, but mostly in the my preferences. So right now, when you're in QuickBooks, if you're not a mouse person, you like to keep your hands on the keyboard, tab is the way to get between the fields in the QuickBooks. If you want to do enter, then you would click this enter. Bringing back all one-time messages usually is, they always send out like add messages on here. And so you can actually, if you like to annoy yourself, bring them back. You can turn off the pop-up messages, which I always do. And then I get rid of this beep when recording a transaction, because when I'm doing a lot of the bookkeeping, I'm going out on like a mad mission, and it would be beeping constantly, and it's kind of annoying. But if you like it, keep it on there. Pre-filling your accounts for vendor based on past transactions. What it does is when I go to put in a vendor later, If I use repairs and maintenance for that vendor, it will always bring that back up. It saves you time and it's efficient. So really what you're doing in preferences is trying to streamline how much you have to fill in. Let QuickBooks do the job for you and be efficient, because the program really is very friendly, even for the non-accounting person. And then the rest of the things it will ask you to save. Rest of the things, reports and graphs, I like to do this refresh automatically because if you make a change, instead of having to hit refresh on the printout of the statements, this will do it every time you make a change, so you're not driving yourself crazy again. Like, I just did that journal entry, why isn't it showing up in my profit and loss? And then this is where, if you are going to use inventory, you have to actually come in and turn it on. So you would actually do inventory and purchase orders are active. I'm not going to do that today. And then if you have to collect sales tax, you need to come in and set it up in here as well. So if you do charge sales tax, you're going to hit yes. I'm not using sales tax in this example, but you need to set up all the items. You may want to ask your accountant if you have one, because there are different rules if you're monthly, quarterly, or annually, and you need to know how you need to record them, and then what you are entitled to having to collect. So if you're selling in multi-states or if you're selling in multi-counties, you need to make sure you set up all of those different sales tax items. So I'm going to go to company right now. If you have additional users you'd like to set up, this is where you would do that. Set up users and passwords. Right now, the only persons that set up is your admin, and then you just add those users as you need to. So I'm going to set up one, and I'm going to use D today, and I'm going to give D a nice little password. Let's see. And it'll probably yell at me because I didn't make it long enough. Oh, and so you can restrict your users to what you want them to be able to access in QuickBooks. I can give D all areas of the QuickBooks, or I can do the selected areas of the QuickBooks. If you also want to set up your external accountants, you can give them this option, and then that allows the external accountant to access all of the QuickBooks except for like the credit card activity, and then some customer data that you also might put in there, including those credit cards. But I like this to go through the selected areas and kind of walk you through them. So the options are no access, full access, or selective access. So be very careful when you're restricting the access, because parts of the QuickBooks relate to other parts of the QuickBooks. So sometimes it's trial and error. If you give them selective access and then they tell you they can't get into it, then you might need to go back and give them more access, such as in this selective here, create transactions only, or create and print transactions. Well, I said to D, could you go run me the AR aging report as of 12/31? It's not going to let her unless I click this create transactions and create reports, which you think is kind of silly because she can create and print them, but she's not allowed to create the report until I give her the ability to. So that's how the rest of the setup goes. It just goes through each of the versions. So I'm going to skip out of that. And then I'm going to get right into my presentation. So I'm going to start with lists, and we're going to go to the chart of accounts. So the chart of accounts is the accounts that QuickBooks set up for me based on the fact that I picked bookkeeping and accounting. And right now they're set up in a format of what type of an asset they are. So I'm going to set up a bank account because I start my business and I'm going to put $1,500 into my bank. So I'm going to go down to this account tab and then new. And of course you can see that QuickBooks has quick keys. Control N is your new, or you can right click on items to edit them. So I'm going to do new right now. And again, here we go with another accounting 101. Income is the money that you bring into your business. Expenses are the monies that goes out of your business that you're paying for your operating and the items that you need to run your business. Fixed assets are the computers you purchase, the vehicles you purchase, the buildings that you purchase. Of course, the bank is your bank statements, savings accounts, CDs. Loan is a long-term debt or maybe a car loan that you take out or a line of credit. And then of course, credit card is self-explanatory. And then equity is you, the owner. So when you put money into your business, that's equity. When you take money out of your business, that's equity as well. So we usually set those up as owners draws, the money out, owners contributions as the money in. And then they have some other accounts. So accounts receivable, if you're going to use QuickBooks to send invoices out, then you're going to use the accounts receivable aspect, and that keeps track of what your customers owe you. And then other current assets would be like inventory would go under other current assets. If you use prepaids, that would go under other current assets. Other assets are items that are not normally used in business. They might be like goodwill. It could be a trademark or a copyright. Maybe you have a life insurance policy out on one of your partners if you're setting up a partner. And then accounts payable is what you owe your vendors or the people you do business with that you purchase things from. Again, depending on how you're going to use the QuickBooks, you may or may not use accounts payable. I'll go through that and then I'll give you the options as to how you want to go forward with using accounts payable or just writing checks. And then other current liabilities, oftentimes this is used for payroll related liabilities, sales tax is a current liability. Of course, long-term liability and loan are the same, but you can use this one if you don't want to use the loan. And then cost of goods sold. So if you're in a business that you produce a product, this is where you're going to populate the expenses that are related to the product that you're selling. So material, direct labor, maybe freight. If you have to use contractors to help build your product, you're going to put all of that in there. And then other income and other expense are things that aren't really related to your business, but they're part of your accounting. So other income, an easy example is interest income. So you're going to put that underneath that. And then maybe if you have royalty income, that would go in there. And then other expense would be, sometimes we put interest expense in there, depending on how you want to treat it. And then we also put in other expense if you have to pay federal or state taxes, because we don't want them to be up above in operating. We like to keep them segregated. So I'm going to start by creating a bank account. And I'm going to just say key bank, and I'm going to say checking. And oftentimes when I have a client, I usually put the last 4 digits of the account at the end in case they end up having a couple other ones. So that's probably a good idea for you to do just to keep them separated. If you're going to use the web feature of banking, then you need to fill in your bank account number and the routing number. And by what I mean is using the web feature where you actually enter something into QuickBooks and then it actually, it's almost like bill pay on your online bank account. Then it will, QuickBooks will speak to your bank website and it will send the checks that you want, and then you can do the download directly, unlike how I do it for my clients where I go on and I do the QBO. This is an actual syncing activity where it will just speak with your bank. So you should check with your bank to see if they do it and then make sure that you set it up properly. And it does work very nicely when you do get comfortable using the QuickBooks. So I'm just going to hit save and close. And now I've set up the bank account. When I was in there. So what it's asking is what I was just talking about, setting up bank feed. set up your online services to save time, and that's what it's called. So if you wanted to do that, it would close it and set you through that whole motion. It takes about 20 minutes to do. So I'm going to right click, and then I'm going to go to edit account. And if I wanted to get in here and enter an opening balance, I would enter that I started my bank account with $1,500. Instead, I'm going to show you how to do a journal entry to do the beginning balance of my checking account. So I'm going to go over here to company real quick and then make journal entries. And let's say I started my business today, and I'll try not to skip through the pop-ups, but it does assign numbers to journal entries. So once you get used to the pop-ups, you can click off the do not display, but until you are comfortable, you might want to read them. Again, it's just trying to make your life easier and make you more efficient. So I'm going to use today's date, and then I'm going to start typing in key bank. So I just used the keyboard to put the K in, and then it dropped up the key bank, and then I'm just going to click that, and I put in $1,500, and so I'm going to put it in the debit side. So if you don't have accounting background, this is where journal entries would get a little scary for you, because you need to know your debits and your credits. So oftentimes I will try not to show you journal entries because you may put them in backwards, but that's okay because your accountant can fix them. So I suggest you put in memos for your accountant if you're going to pass this along. So I'm just going to put opening deposit. And then I'm going to come down to the second line, and I'm going to see if they gave me owner's draw. Oh, members equity is what they called it. So I'm just going to pick that. And there's the $1,500. So you could do this multiple ways. So I did it as a journal entry. And so I'm going to hit save and close. And it's going to give me a warning about posting to retained earnings. You really shouldn't post to retained earnings unless it's a contribution by yourself or a draw from yourself, because equity is where retained earnings is where your business income and loss accumulates over the years. So the other way I could have done it, and I'll do it real quick, is banking make deposits. And this is probably the safer way for non-accounting people to do it. And again, you would just pick the bank account and then put in the date. And then from account is where you're going to enter the chart of accounts. And so that's where I would go back down to that members equity again. And then I would put in the $1,500. I'm not going to duplicate it, but I just wanted to show you that you would, this is the other option. Again, make sure you put in the memo and then put in the dollar amount. All right, so then I'm going to go to customers. And so Customer Center provides you with all of the customers that you would have into your QuickBooks file. When you start populating them, they'll have the names over here, and then you'll have balance totals. And then you can attach things to your customers. So if you do a job where you have a contract, I have engagement letters. So I oftentimes attach the engagement letter to the customer. So right now I'm going to go to new customer and job and add a new customer.
Kelly, someone is asking if our bank is already synced with QuickBooks, will this action create a duplicate?
The bank actually is very smart, and it knows what it's already downloaded. So if you're already doing Web Connect, it will not duplicate the transactions, as it will not do the same thing with the QBO download either. Okay. So I'm going to set up a client, and then I'm going to go and do an invoice to do it on the fly, as I like to call it. So John Miller. And then I'm going to give him an address of whatever comes to mind today. And you can fill in all of the boxes, or you can leave them blank. I've rarely send out emails via, as I call it, the snail mail or the United States Postal Service. I email all of my invoices. So let's put in John Miller and give him a nice little email. And then you can put in phone numbers there. You can put in, maybe he has a office manager. You can put in that email as well. If you're in a profession or in a industry that you ship things to your clients, you can actually copy this address over here and then ship it to and give it names. So maybe John Miller has an Jamestown factory. And so you can set it up and then you can put notes in there again and make it the default. And then it'll have it there and then you can pick it up. So you can do an additional location. You can edit the one that you have there, or you can throw it into the garbage. And then payment settings. If you give your customers accounts, put in their account number there, and then payment terms. So I have everything is due on receipts. So I would select that one, but I'll go through the other ones for your accounting 101. 1% 10 net 30 means you're giving your customer a 1% discount if they pay in 10 days, but they owe the full amount in 30. As is the 2% is 2% off in 10 days net 30. Obviously, consignment is something that you're holding for someone else and selling it for them. And then I'm sure you're getting a commission off of it. And then net 50 means it's due in 15 days, the full amount. Of course, net 30 is the same, and net 60. And then you can make up your own if you want to. So I'm going to use due on receipt. And then it allows you to do the preferred delivery method. Do they want to do email? Do they want to do mail? I like the one none. The customer doesn't want the bill, but that's too bad. And then they might have a preferred payment method that they pay all the time. This just helps you when you're doing the receipt that you don't have to keep selecting it. So I'm gonna pick John as check. And then you can put the credit card information in here. Be careful that you have the proper firewalls to do this. And then you can let online payments happen as well. You get a charge through QuickBooks, so you may want to look at that, or you can use Square if you want to. A lot of people use Venmo or PayPal as well. So, and then you can give them credit limits. If you're using sales tax, this is where you would have your sales tax code. And if they have a resale number, put that in there. And this would be a perfect example of something that you would want to attach to your customer. If you're in the business where you have exempt customers for, say, contracting, you'd want to attach their sales tax exemption form to their customer account. And then additional info, if you have different types of customers that you set up, sometimes they have referrals, retail, wholesale. And then if you have reps, you would set them up in there. And then again, if you're in the business of doing construction or something where you have multiple jobs, this is where you would set up your jobs. So I have it, John Miller already set up, so he's good to go. And then in this section here, you can look at the contact information, or you can put it in there and put some contacts in. You can have to-dos in here, notes for your customers. And then if you do send the invoices by email, this is where you can go to check to make sure that you sent it. This time of the year, I get into tax season. I try to send an email out of the invoice as soon as I send the client their tax return. And sometimes I say, oh, did I send that? I created the invoice, but did I actually send the email? Did I get interrupted by a phone call? So you could come to this tab and actually see what date it went out and what number and when it got sent and what template you used. So QuickBooks does kind of help you. It does use whatever email you set up. It'll allow you use Outlook and Yahoo and Gmail. So that's also in the preferences for sending your forms. So I'm going to go a different way to set up the next client, and I'm going to do create an invoice under customer. And I always tell clients, you can use the invoice number that starts. But if you're a starting business, you may want to put like this year's 2021-1, and then it will populate, or you could use 2021-1, and then it looks like you've been in business for a long time. So I am going to create an invoice for John, and then I'm going to do another invoice for a new customer. So item is where you have to have items created to track what you're presenting or selling or preparing for your clients. So because I'm going to do accounting and bookkeeping, I'm going to give invoice to John for individual tax preparation. And that's what I'm going to call my item. And then if I hit tab, QuickBooks is going to tell me it does not see it in my list of products and services. And would you like to add it now? And I'm going to say yes. And so this is a new item. And so today I'm going to set up everything as services because that's what I'm presenting as a service. I'm not providing a product, even though I do provide a tax return, it's my service. And I will go over these again for you. Non-inventory parts or items that you want to track that you don't necessarily want to keep track of. So at the end of the year, you don't want to go back and track, if you're doing bicycle repair, you don't want to track all of the wire that you're using for brakes. Or maybe you don't want to track all of the brake pads that you use. So you might want to set that up as a non-inventory part to track. And then at the end of the year, you just say, yeah, I got 400, that looks about right. Fix that. And of course, I don't have inventory started on this computer. I didn't pick that as a preference. So inventory related items will not show up on the item list. Other charge, maybe you do freight. You could put that under other charge. And so that would be something you would set up for a client. Subtotals are if you put a bunch of items and then you want a total, and then you want to put another bunch of items and then another total. So it keeps doing that. And then if you want to provide a discount to your client for something, you can use the discount. And then payment is if you collect retainers in advance, you're going to want to use the payment type. So I'm going to use service, and then it already gives me the item name as I set it up. And I'm not going to use sub items yet, but I will show you those in a minute. So the description is what goes out to the customer or the client. So I'm just going to retype individual tax preparation. And then you can put in the rate or you can leave it blank. I'm going to leave it blank right now. And then you need to select an account to assign it to. So since it's tax preparation, I'm going to select the tax preparation services income. You can put notes in here as well if you want to. I don't normally do them in the chart of accounts. I usually leave notes for customers and vendors. So I'm going to hit OK there. And then you can choose to use quantity or not. So what I use quantity for is if I'm doing bookkeeping and I'm tracking the hours that I'm using to do the hours that I accumulated to do the bookkeeping. And then I would put 2 or 3 in there. And then I have a special rate that I use for bookkeeping. At this point, I'm going to put in 5 hours for the tax prep because that's how I'm going to do this example at $150 an hour. So my bill is going to be $750 to John Miller. QuickBooks lets you put in some nice little customer messages. I have some that are already in here. I like this. It's been a pleasure working with you. You can add new ones if you want to. Please return your payment, prompt payment there. You can do whatever you want to do. This memo here is for you and you only. The customer is not going to see that. So oftentimes I will put in memos for if I'm doing an audit and I need to have so many copies. I'll put in 10 bound copies here, but you can do whatever you need to make for notes for yourself, but you can also do it over here. I do it on this memo for this particular invoice because when I go back to look at it next year, I have an out-of-pocket charge and I'll say, well, how many bound copies did I do? And then compare it over here. Yep. Okay, over here is the notes for the actual customer. So again, you can see activity over here. It kind of gives you a summary of the customer, what their email is, their opening balance. And then you can see transactions here, and it doesn't show one yet because I haven't saved it. So I'm going to do save and new.
Kelly, we have two questions.
Yep.
First one is the cost of QuickBooks yearly or one-time cost to buy the program?
So when I started off the presentation, the numbers that I gave then were a one-time purchase, and that's when you can use the QuickBooks for say 5 years, or if you want to stretch it out to 10, but they will limit you at 10. They do have an annual subscription for QuickBooks and each of those Pro, Premier, and for Pro and Premier, and that provides support and updates. That gets a little bit more costly. So if you want to just purchase it and use it until it's no longer supported by QuickBooks, that's probably your best bet. Enterprise is an annual expense because it is such a large program and it needs to be updated for all of its glitches and all of the new features. So Enterprise is probably the most expensive one. If you are a not-for-profit, you can also go to TechSoup, and they oftentimes have discounted versions of QuickBooks for you, but you have to prove that you are either government or a not-for-profit to use TechSoup.
Thank you. And the second one is my orders are transferred to QuickBooks from my Shopify account. Tax is already included in the order. Do I also have to add sales tax info in this section?
No, because the Shopify, well, depends on how you have Shopify coming over. If you have it collecting the sales tax and created, it's going to your sales tax payable account, then you do not need to add it. But if you're not charging sales tax in your Shopify, then yes, you need to do it in your QuickBooks.
Thank you, Kelly.
Yep. So now I'm going to do a new one, save and new. Oh, actually, I'm going to put in his company name, and it'll probably, let's see. I hope there's not a John Miller at Gmail, because it's going to send him an invoice. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to create one for Nicholas's Landscaping. And then you can do this like on the fly. And that's what I like about QuickBooks, is that you don't have to go through and set up all of your customers or your vendors. You can do everything as you're working along. So Nicholas's Landscaping is not in the customer job list. Would you like to quick add it? And so if you quick add, all it's going to do is put Nicholas Landscaping in there. Setup is what we did earlier. And that's going to give you this whole box of setting everything else up. So I'm not going to do that. So I could have done the quick, but I wanted to show you the difference. So I'm just going to leave Nicholas as is. And then now I'm going to do a corporate tax return. And then it, of course, will tell me it's not in there. And then again, picking service, and then I'm going to put in the description. And then again, make sure you select the account that it needs to go to. And then this time it's taking me 10 hours at $150. So I'm going to create that invoice. And of course, I'm going to say thank you for your business. And then I'm going to save and close this, because invoices are for when you send an invoice out to a customer that doesn't pay you right then and there. So sometimes I have clients that come in. I do invoices all the time. It's just easier for me. But sometimes you may have a profession or a industry that people come in and they maybe buy a item out of your inventory at a sales counter, and you don't use the POS system. You just use the QuickBooks in general. So in this instance, you would use a sales receipt. And it looks very similar to an invoice, except for this actually records the money that you've received in immediately, whereas an invoice, we're going to receive those monies in later. So I'm going to create one for Matthew Adams. And I'm just going to quick add him. And one of the things I didn't go over is there's multiple templates in QuickBooks as well. And you can go through in the edit preferences and select your templates if you want to. And then under lists and templates, and you can go through and pick which one you like. I typically use the Intuit Professional Invoice. Mine actually has my letterhead on it. It has my fax and my phone number. You can put logos in there. You can design the invoice however you want. You can get rid of columns. You can add columns. You can put color. You can do all sorts of fancy stuff in there. So, and then I'm going to use window feature because window shows you what you have open. So I'm just going to go back to this enter sales receipts. So Matthew comes in and he's going to pay with a check. And he came in, he wants to start a business and he wanted an hour of my time to talk about what he needs to do to set up his business. So I'm going to do business consulting. And again, service. And then I usually just use generic. You can do as much or as little. And whatever you put in there, you can always switch it as well. And then I'm going to put it to consulting income. So you could type right here. If I wanted to put in more detail, I could put business consulting on dairy farm or something. And then it won't change the item. It will just change it for the sales receipt. So he came in for an hour and I charged him $200 for this particular date. And again, I'm just going to say, thank you for your business. And so what this does is it actually records it to my undeposited funds because QuickBooks accumulates your payments until you make a deposit. And I'll be showing that to you shortly. So, and then I'm just going to hit save and close. So a couple other things under customers that you might want. If you create estimates, this is where you would go to do that. You can then in turn switch your estimates into invoices when the customer decides they're going to do business with you. You can enter statement charges for finance charges if you'd like to, and then you can create statements. So if you have customers that you do multiple transactions throughout the year or you sell multiple products, this is where you would create their statements to send them out. And then you can do payment reminders as well to your customers. And then if you're going to use credit card processing, this is where you would go to. So if you notice in a lot of the menu items, there's the same things in different places. So like item list is under customers, but it's also under lists. You might find it under company as well. So where you find something might not always be the same place I look for it. So the nice feature in QuickBooks is help. If you type something in, it's very helpful to find the menu item or it will take you to where you need to go by clicking. So I'm going to go back to item list. Oops. So now I have 3 items sitting in here. And if you need to change them again, just like the chart of accounts, you can right click and edit them. You can also go down here and add new ones down there and duplicate them. You can do them in different columns if you want to. You can do all sorts. You can run reports with it too if you want to do a report of just your items. You can do a report just on business consulting itself. You can send it out to Excel. And then you can also create your invoices right from your item list. So like I said, you can do things from different points of view in the QuickBooks. You could have done it from over here in customers as well. So I'm now going to go to vendors, and those are the people you do business with. And the vendor center looks very similar to the customer center. So you would have the same activity. So I'm going to just enter bills in this section. I'm not going to set up the vendor right now I'm going to do it on the fly. So I'm going to go to vendors and enter bills. So depending on how you run your business, you may want to use enter bills to track your payables. So if you only pay your bills twice a month, you're going to enter them in. That's going to accumulate them. You can look and say, okay, what do I owe? When are they due? Otherwise, you may just put them in a Pendaflex file and put them on your desk and pay them when you pay them. So it depends on how sophisticated you're going to use your QuickBooks for. So for this example, I'm going to say we're going to use the QuickBooks to track our bills. So I'm going to put in a bill for Spectrum. And Spectrum is not in the vendor list. So of course, it's going to give you the same error as it did with the customers, quick add or setup. So we're going to set up the Spectrum one because I want to show you the features for the vendors. So again, if you have a vendor name and you have a vendor that you have a different name for, but you write the check for a different person, this is where you would write in there. So for example, I have a client and I have a vendor and his name is Bill Miller, but his business is Bill's Contracting, and that's how I write the check. So I'm going to show you how to do that in just a second. So here you would fill out the information. So let's say it's a PO box. And I don't know the zip code up there, so I'm creating one. Again, main, phone number, your emails, all of the activity website, anything you want, and if you're shipping. So payment settings, again, if you have an account number with your Spectrum internet, you're going to put that in there. So I'm just going to create one. And then again, payment terms. So not only do you have payment terms as the person in business, but the vendors you do business with also as well. So my Spectrum bill is due in 30 days. So I'm going to put net 30 there. And this is where I was saying print name on the check as. So let's say Spectrum isn't Spectrum. It's supposed to go to Spectrum Corp. And that's what you need to put on there. Again, credit limits, tax settings. Time of year when 1099s need to go out. So this is where if you have a person that you need to send a 1099 to, you're going to fill in this box here. You're going to make sure you hit the vendor eligible for 1099 and put in either their employer ID number or their social security number. Big change in 1099s this year. Your subcontractors no longer go on the 1099 MISC, the 1099 miscellaneous. They go on a new form called the 1099 NEC. So be very careful that you're filing correctly. If you ordered the 1099 miscellaneouses and you're looking for box 7, non-employee compensation, it's no longer there. It's on the lovely new 1099 NEC. And then account settings. So for me, Spectrum is always going to be my internet. So I'm going to pull down the chart of accounts and I'm going to look to see, computer and internet expenses. So I'm going to use that. So it's going to make my life more efficient. So every time Spectrum comes up, so does the computer and internet expense. If you have multiples, then you can put them all there. So let's say you use Spectrum for internet and then you also use it for telephone. Then you would pick that as well. And then any additional information, if you have different vendor types that you use, so suppliers, maybe tax agency, consultant, you can of course create your own, you can put those there as well. And of course it's going to yell at me because I didn't put in an ID number, so I'll give it one. Oops. So I get the bill on, let's say I got it on 1/5/21, and then in the references, you're going to put the invoice number if you have one. So let's say they have S-543 in there, and then the amount due is going to be $142.65. And because I picked that the terms were net 30, it's going to tell me that the bill is due on 2/4/2021. And then it does the computer and internet. And then if you need to see it, you can get the crossbow and then pull it across so you can see more. You can put a memo in here. This is for you. This memo is for the you know, actually it's the vendor, so you could see it. So you might want to put that in there or not. If you had a discount, the discount date would show up. So I'm going to leave that blank because I really don't have anything to put in there. It's pretty self-explanatory. And then I'm going to put in another bill. I'm going to use STG as my computer consulting or my IT people, and I'm just going to quick add those. And I'm going to put that in as the 10th. A little feature here, if you have the program set up so it puts the date in, the current date, you can switch the date on the keypad. The plus sign will increase it, the minus sign will decrease it. And then there's some other shortcut features. QuickBooks doesn't give you a manual anymore. There is the, it's called the lost manual or the hidden manual. If you look on Amazon, it actually is the manual for whatever version you're using. Or you can go online and just type in quick shortcuts for QuickBooks, and it'll give you a PDF file of all of the shortcuts that you can use for the different features in QuickBooks too. And then, so I'm going to put this in for $215 and my invoice number. And then this one I didn't set up in the vendor, so now I have to pick what it's for. So I just started typing computer consulting, and so computer and internet expenses came up again. So if you do buy something and you're in the business for charging things back to your customers, you can actually put it over here. So like if I was to have bought something for John Miller, let's say I'm doing the audit for him and I had to specifically buy an office program or office supplies. I'll put office supplies in there, and I'm not going to keep it, but I'm going to put in John Miller, and then it's going to give me a billable, and it will track it for you. So you don't forget to charge that client back. So I'm going to show you something of deleting. So I don't want this office supplies line. So I'm going to go to edit and delete line and get rid of it. And then I'm going to hit save and close. And then I'm going to show you a couple other things. I'm going to go back to vendors and customers. I'm going to do some things in an order of entering transactions. So I'm going to go to banking. And we're going to enter credit card charges. In order for you to enter it, of course, it says you need a valid credit card. Would you like to create one now? I'm going to say yes. And then you're going to put in the account number. So I'm just going to put in my Citibank credit card. And then again, I always tell my clients to put in the last 4 digits so that you know to keep track of them. And then I'm going to hit save and close. So the credit card charge is very similar to the bill entry, and you can punch in the vendor, and then you can put in if it's a purchase or if it's a refund or a credit. So in this case, I'm going to say I'm going to buy something from Office Max, which I'm not sure that that's what it's called anymore, but that's what we're using today. And then we're going to do it as of the 10th. And the reference number is not necessary on a credit card, but you could put in something that relates to you. Maybe there's a transaction number at the bottom of the receipt. Maybe you did it online. Oops, and you want to put the online in there. And so I'm going to have a credit card charge of $895.54. When I went into Office Max, or when I was purchasing online, because ours is no longer here, I bought some office supplies for $236.58. You can put in the memo, whatever you had purchased. So maybe I put in paper, some files, pens, etc. You can put in whatever you want in there. And then I decided I needed a new desk for keeping track of the client files as they came in so we could have some organization. So I'm going to put it to furniture and equipment. So furniture and equipment, of course, is a fixed asset like I talked about before. And then I'm going to put in the description, desk for processing area. And if you watched while I was doing it, the 236 would have showed up in expenses. And then when I added the 658.96, it would have added the 895.54. Let's say that I have the receipt in front of me and I really didn't have the breakdown like I do. So I'm going to go back up to this office supplies figure and I'm going to delete it for a second. And well, let's say one of the line items for the paper is $65.90. And then I go down to the files. If you use your 10 keypad on your keypad, or if you use the numbers across the top of your keypad, you can use your add and subtract, your processing functions. And so it adds like an adding machine. So if you're an accountant or you like an adding machine or a computer, it actually shows like it's a calculator here, like the little ripped up piece of paper at the top. So you can just keep adding all of the receipts until you get to the number that you need to get to, and then it will add it up for you. So, and you can do subtracts, divides, whatever. So now I'm going to do another one. And now I decided I'm buying the QuickBooks itself. So I'm going to put in Intuit. Intuit's not in the account. Again, the name list is a vendor. Just make sure you pick the right one. Of course, remember customers are who you're selling your product or your service to. I try to tell people to stay away from other. The problem with other is when you're trying to run a report, there is no reports for other. You have to actually create the report. You have to select the others. It's very painstaking to find information, whereas QuickBooks is set up to run reports for your vendors and your customers. So vendor, and then I'm gonna say that I bought it on the 12th. So I'm gonna do the plus sign twice so I don't move my hand from the keyboard. And then again, I'm gonna do online, and I bought it for $435. And then I'm gonna punch in software, and I don't see software in the expense or the chart of accounts. So I'm just gonna type it in. And then it's gonna say software is not in the account list. And so I'm going to set it up. And of course, this is an expense. So I'm gonna leave it as where the bubble is, selecting expense. And then it's going to bring me over to this screen. And then I'm just gonna verify that it kept the account type at expense. The account name is software. I don't really need to add anything else in there. And I'm gonna hit save and close. And then I'm gonna put in the memo 2020 accountant version QB.
Kelly, someone is asking if you can attach a receipt.
Yep, you can attach a receipt right here as the attached file. And then you can attach any of the receipts to those as you go through. So you can use your phone and send it to a file. You can use the scanner if you're doing it on if you have a scanner app on your computer. Of course, you can get QuickBooks for Apple as well. Or so you could do a scanner feature on an app. Or you can use any version of how to download the scanned files.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And so I'm going to do a refund this time. So let's say I decided that I wanted to return something at Office Max. And so I'm going to hit this refund credit. And then I'm going to type in the Office Max. And let's say I did it on 1/11/21. And let's say something was for $53. As you noticed, it populated the office supplies and the furniture and equipment from the prior use of the Office Max name. And I'm just going to use office supplies. And then let's say we returned file folders or something. And then it will pop up. And then you can leave this there. It will record a 0 in your general ledger, but it does no harm for leaving the file and furniture and equipment there. So now I'm going to go back to customers again. And now we're going to record some payments. So the mailman came today and we have a couple checks in the mail. And so we are going to receive payments. And so you actually start typing in your customer name. And so John Miller sent me in a check for his tax preparation, and the amount of it was for $750. And the check number was number 4567. So QuickBooks knows to look for the exact numbers. So since I had typed in 750, it's going to look for an invoice for 750. If there wasn't an invoice for 750, it's going to default back to the oldest invoice that you have. So be very careful that you are paying attention when it's automatically assigning it. So I'm going to also take in a credit card payment from Nicholas Smith. And that's Nicholas's Landscaping, and he paid the $1,500. And then I'm going to select the credit. And so what happens here is we'll set you up. Oops, gotta get the screen over. Oh boy.
We have a question from Arlene, and
Yep.
she's asking, how often do you recommend working in your QuickBooks program? Monthly?
So I'll tell you, do as I say, not as I do. I'll tell you how I use my QuickBooks. I use my QuickBooks on a daily basis to do invoicing. I do my check entering if I'm not already writing the check from QuickBooks on a monthly basis, and then I do my bank reconciliation on a monthly basis. I also do my credit card transactions on a monthly basis. If you're using your business and you're very active with payments going out, I would suggest probably doing it weekly, if not daily. So it depends on how large your company is. So for me, monthly suits it, but you'll figure out how overwhelmed you are. So I would suggest probably doing it weekly until you get comfortable. And then if you feel you've got a hold of it, then you could go to monthly. Again, all depends on how much activity you have in your business.
Thank you.
So here you would enter the Visa activity or the credit card number and the expiration date. I'm not going to do that because I don't really want to process it, but I wanted to show you how you actually collect the Visa card. So it will still go through and record the payment for me, even if I used, say, PayPal or Venmo. And I actually use PayPal and Venmo, and I just set them up over here in More. Ugh. Whoa, that wasn't what I wanted to do. Sorry. I don't know where that little screen went to now. Hold on. I found my Zoom screen thing. It's over on that other. All right, now it won't let me out of there. All right, so let's clear that. Let's try that again. Sorry about that. My multiple screens got me there. So let's do Nicholas. And then we'll just put him back in, and I'll see if I can get that to come back up again. There we go. So you can add a new payment method here. And so a lot of the times, oh boy, it does not like my screen over on this computer. And so when you add it, you can put in the Venmo or the PayPal. So I'm going to try that again. Maybe. I don't know why it keeps going over to that screen. Anyways, clear. Sorry. Issues today with this Zoom meeting. All right. There we go. So we've received those two payments. So now the other way I was going to show you, if you're going to pay your bills and you're not going to enter them, I don't enter bills. I don't have that many bills that come into my office that I don't pay immediately. or that don't go automatically through my checking account or don't automatically go through my credit card. So I often set up recurring transactions, which I will show you. And then when I do write a check, I just go right into the QuickBooks and write the check. And you can also do it on after the fact. So maybe you still have handwritten checks, and then you can just come back into QuickBooks and enter them after. So I'm going to write a check here, and let's say our check numbers start at 11/25, and I'm just going to put in another date, 10/24. And I'm going to do contribution to the Chautauqua Humane Society. And it's not in the name list. Of course, just remember to pick vendor when you're writing checks, unless you're giving a refund to a customer. And I'm going to do it for $100. And because I hadn't cleared the screen, it picked up software from the Intuit. And then I'm going to type in contributions. And so far, contributions is not showing up. So it's going to ask me to set it up, and it's going to be an expense. And if you're like me, I like everything to be in conformity. So I'm going to capitalize the C and then hit save and close. And then I'm going to pay for my utility. Oops. See, there we go. 2021. It told me it was 30 days in advance. So there's your error warning that I'm trying to put in a transaction that's 30 days in the future. And I'm going to say yes, because we're just doing it for an example. And then I'm going to pay our utility company, which is our Board of Public Utilities. I'm going to hit quick add and vendor. And then I'm going to put in $329.56, and I'm going to come down to the account and put utilities in there. So one thing I just want to point out to you, if you are using inventory, you'll see there's two tabs here on either the checks, the invoices, or the bills that you enter for vendors, and on the credit card charges. Items are those things that you want to track either in inventory or your non-inventory items. I would suggest you only use items for inventory. You could, like the example I gave earlier, if you were doing like the brake pads, you could put the brake pads in there. So if you're collecting them, just make sure that you understand the difference between tracking an item and tracking an expense. So make sure you walk through that with your accountant or someone that has the knowledge before you put things in a place you don't want them, and then you're making lots of changes. So I'm going to hit save and new there. And again, it's going to warn me that it's further out than 30 days. I'm going to go back again to chart of accounts, and we're going to do a little bit of different things in the chart of accounts. I am going to create an account called just advertising, and it's going to be an expense.
Kelly, before you move forward,
Yep.
Don is asking, can we add sell, or I don't know how to pronounce it, sell, Z-E-L-L-E, through our bank?
Oh, Zelle, yeah. Yep, you can add that as a payment too in the receive payments.
Okay, thank
You
you.
can put anything in there. So, oops, so I'm going to put in advertising. And then I'm going to hit save and close. And so now we have advertising and promotion in here. So I'm showing you this because it goes across the board for chart of accounts, customers, and vendors. And I find it oftentimes with customers and vendors. My part-timer likes to put things in last name first. I put things in first name, last name. Maybe I put in a middle initial for a client. Maybe I put ink at the back side of the client. So we might have one or two different two or three different names in for the same person. So what I'm going to show you is how you can merge those names so that you only have one and you don't lose any activity. So I want to switch it so that advertising now becomes advertising and promotion. So I'm going to right click on the advertising and hit editing and accounting, or edit account. So when you're doing the merge, you have to make the the account that you no longer want equal to the account that you want to maintain. And it has to be exact. It has to be the exact capitalization. It has to be the exact punctuation, the exact spacing. So advertising and promotion was the other one. And so when I hit save and close, this is the error you should get if you did it correctly. And it says this name is already being used. Would you like to merge them? And I'm going to say yes. And so now I'm back to advertising and promotion. So another little thing in the chart of accounts, I'm going to show you a little trick, is if you notice that the QuickBooks puts everything in alphabetical order, you can move them around if you want to. And you just have to start by getting the cross arrow, and you just can start moving things, and you'll get the arrow, and oops, did you, you'll see the dotted lines. So you get the arrow, and then you can move it down and put it to wherever you want to, and then you can move things around. So oftentimes I do this for clients because I don't, so payroll expenses as an example. Usually we call it salaries and wages. They like to see that one at the top. And how you have this formatted is how it will show up on your profit and loss as well. So another thing that clients like to do is make sub-accounts of things. So depending on how fancy you want your financial statements to be, you can have marketing and advertising as a section. You can have general and administrative as a section. You can see sub-accounts here. So an insurance expense, this is an example of a sub-account. So let's say I want to add disability. So I'm going to just right click here. Actually, I'm going to do it down here so that you don't think that I'm doing off of that. So I'm going to do new, and I'm going to click expense, and I'm going to pick disability insurance. And then I want it to become a sub-account of my insurance expense. So I'm going to go find insurance and click it, and then hit save and close. And now disability comes in order under my insurance expense. And so you can do that with any one of your accounts that you have. So if you want to put office supplies and postage under something that's called office expense, you could do that. You could put software and computer under something that's computer related expenses. You can do whatever you want, and then you can go back and put them as sub accounts, or you can, like I said, you could do the general and administrative. So if you wanted to do a G&A part, you would do the general and administrative. Just make sure you pick the right account format. So general and administrative. And then I'm going to hit save and close. So general and administrative would sit up here. And then I could just pick a couple of them. So let's say advertising and promotion. I'm going to do that. Nope, I don't want to delete it right yet. I will tell you about deleting. So I want to sub account it. And if I just type in the G, general administrative will come up, save and close. And then it will put general and administrative underneath there. So if you decide you don't want an account anymore, you don't want to use it, you can delete it. So right click, and then you can delete the account. You can only delete an account if it has no activity in it. If you've made transactions in it, then you must use the make account inactive. So I'm going to make this one inactive and then show you how to go find it later on. So now I've made that one inactive. If you see at the bottom of the screen, it says include inactive. It will have little big X's next to, on the left side, to the accounts that are inactive. To activate them again, all you have to do is click on it and it will bring it back into the chart of accounts. If I inactivated it and then I want to go use it because I need to make a journal entry for my client. So let's say I go to write a check and I'm going to write it to New York State CPA, and it's not in there for $500. And then I type in dues. Oh, what did I inactivate? Oops, let's go to window. Oh, business licenses, sorry. And let me go back to window.
Meanwhile, Luan is asking, do you add a vendor account name even if it's a one-time purchase, or do we ever use miscellaneous?
If you have someone that you'd only use one time, you can say other vendor, or you can give it a name. Like we say cash customer or one-time purchase vendor. And then you can just use that person and or that name instead of tracking them. It's up to you. Most often that's used with customers, but not really with vendors. So if I try to put in business licenses permits, this is the error it will provide me. Use it once or make it active because I made it inactive. And so right now I'm just going to use it once. Any other questions up to this point right now?
Not so far.
Okay. So now I'm going to go pay those bills that we had earlier. So we entered bills earlier. Now I'm going to pay some bills. And so this is the pay bills screen. So it shows all of your bills. Of course, you can actually switch it to be due on or before if you want to just see certain ones that you have money for. So we had STG and then Spectrum in there. And so I'm going to pay the Spectrum bill with a check. So I'm going to click on the Spectrum bill. I have no discounts and I have no credits here either. So if you had a discount, it would show up down here and then you would hit set discount. And then if I had a credit, you would show the credit here and then you would hit the set credits there. So I'm going to say pay the Spectrum bill. And then down below I have Spectrum and the check to be printed, or you can assign the check. So I'm going to say I'm assigning it. And then we're paying it today. So I'm going to say pay selected bill. And let's say I use check number 1001 to pay it. And then it'll say your transaction is more than 30 days in the future. Are you sure? Yes. And then it's going to give you a little screen that says you have a payment summary here, and it says that it's done. And then I could have said pay more bills at that spot, and that's what I'm just going to go back again so you remember pay bills. And then the only thing that should be there now is STG. And I'm going to use STG. I'm going to pay that with my credit card. So I'm going to click it again, and then I'm going to go down to the method, and I'm going to select credit card. And then it should select whatever credit card you have already entered. If you have another one, then enter it. You can again do it on the fly and add new, or go back to enter setting it up. So I'm going to select and pay selected bills, again, 30 days in the future. And then it'll give me that payment summary again. So here you could have paid more bills from the last screen, or just go forward. You can print your payment stubs. I oftentimes, when I'm doing anything in QuickBooks, just send it to PDF. I'm a very paperless office, so we put everything on the server and on the computer. So that's one of the features I like about QuickBooks is you can send everything to Adobe or to Excel, and you can do a lot of things electronically. I'm going to reconcile the credit card, and you can also reconcile your bank account. So I'm going to do the credit card first. So I'm going to hit banking, and then I'm going to hit reconcile. And then you get this little screen that says begin reconciliation. And this is the same screen you're going to receive every time you're reconciling anything that's a bank account or a credit card or a savings account. And so it'll tell you, and it will only let you reconcile the top items. So I'm going to select the Citibank account, and then I'm going to put in the date as of, I'm going to use 2/28 because I can't remember. Oh, I might have used 10 for making the payment, so I better use 10/31. And then I'm going to put in my ending balance as 155,579. And then I'm going to say I carried over a balance from last month and the company charged me $6.25 in finance charges. And then you're going to have to create an account because I don't believe we have a finance account in here. So I didn't see one, but if I start typing in it, that finance charge income is what you charge your customers. So you don't want to use that. So you either want to call it the same thing or you want to, or finance expense, or maybe you want to call it credit card finance charges, just so that you don't get confused when you type in finance. And then I'm going to continue. And yes, it's going to give me that error. So what it does is it brings up all of the transactions that are sitting in that account. So your charges and any cash advances are to the left. Any payments that you made or credits that you received are going to be on the right-hand side. And the goal is to get this difference down here to be 0. And then you've reconciled. If it's not 0, don't reconcile, leave, come back, or figure out what you're missing. So I'm gonna hit in here, start clicking and seeing what has cleared. And apparently the credit card charge was not processed, and maybe I put in a wrong date on that because I'm already reconciled to 0. So I'm gonna double click on that charge and say, we didn't get the credit card refund until after the date of the transaction. So instead of putting in November, I actually put in 11. It was supposed to be I put in 1/11, it was supposed to be 11/01. And I'm gonna hit save and close and say yes, and that will bring me right back to the reconciliation. So now I have the credit card charge in there. It will stay in there until the next time I reconcile. You can see your transactions down here, and then you can see your difference is 0, which means now you can hit the reconcile now button. And if you didn't enter things, you can actually go to the screen and set them up to be entered. This will ask if you want to check for payment now or an enter bill for later. I'm going to say neither. Because if you enter all of your credit card charges as they should be, you don't need to do either one of those transactions. So it's asking if I want to display or print it. I'm just going to hit close. And then I'm going to go back and reconcile the bank account this time. And this time on my bank account, it says I have $3,970.80. And I actually earned 45 cents in interest earned. So I should be wanting, oops, I'm gonna better change this date so it doesn't mess us up. I'm gonna use 12/31 of 21. And just make sure that all of your dates are the same on your transactions. Make sure that the interest is right. And then I'm going to start typing interest income. And of course, interest expense shows up, and that's not what I want. So I'm just going to continue to type interest income. It's going to say it's not in the account list. I'm going to set it up. And QuickBooks is smart for its own good, and it already selects other income to put my interest income to. And so I'm going to hit save and close. And then I'm going to hit continue. Again, the error. And again, left-hand side is your checks and payments. Right-hand side is your deposits. So when you're, well, I'm going to go back to this modify to this screen. When you're putting this balance in here, this is the ending balance on your bank statement. And that's how you should be reconciling. And this beginning balance should be what your bank statement also says. It has nothing to do with what's sitting in your QuickBooks, because what you're trying to do is reconcile to your bank account. So make sure you put in the ending balance to your bank statement and the correct date. So then I'm going to start clicking here based on whatever's sitting on my bank account. And it looks like I did not enter a deposit for $2,650. And then I think to myself, oh, that's right, I got those 2 checks in. So I'm going to go up to banking and make deposits. And so what QuickBooks does when you do the receive payment feature is it has a little account called undeposited funds, and it keeps everything in there until you make that deposit. So I'm going to do 2 transactions here because most banks are very similar. They separate your credit card charges, your ATM, your EFT, debit card charges or receipts, separating it from your check and your cash. So I'm going to do the Visa charge first. And I'm going to select it and say, okay. I'm going to make sure it's going into my key bank account. And then here you see it's coming from the undeposited funds. And then I'm going to say save and new because I want it to bring me back here. And let's say I didn't go to the bank until Matthew brought in his check. And so I'm going to select both of those deposits. And then I'm going to make sure that I pick the date of 1/15/2021 because that's when Matthew came in. And then I'm going to hit save and close. Oops. Then I'm going to select the 2. And now it says I have a difference of $200. So then I'm like, all right, what did I do wrong now? So apparently I must not have also made a payment in there. And I remember that I got a check-in for a refund on my insurance. So I'm going to go straight to banking and I am going to make a deposit. And I'll just pick a date. So I use a company called Mayville Tremaine for my insurance. They're not in the system. Where is this little there? And I'm going to put them in as a vendor. And then I'm going to put it to insurance expense because it is actually, I'm going to be more specific. It's a refund on my workers' comp. So you can put in the check number if you want to. Obviously, if you put in a check number, the payment method is check, but you could also, and here's an example, maybe I'll do this way. Maybe they decided to pay me via PayPal and I don't have PayPal in there, so I'm going to add it. Maybe because it keeps going over to this screen. I can't get to it. Escape. All right, so I'm just going to use the check this time, but you can add a new one. For some reason, it's sending them up over the top of my screen and I can't reach them. So I'm going to put in $200 in there, and then I'm going to make sure on my memo, refund workers from audit. And then I'm going to hit save and close. Yes, it's 30 days in the future. And then I'm going to click it. And now it shows the difference is 0. So a little trick for you as you're working on your bank reconciliation. If you can't get it to come to 0, if you have a bank that provides you the top of the bank statement where it shows you checks and your debits and your credits all in some number, you can see debits and other credits at 4,150. Compare it to the number that's on your bank statement. If that number doesn't agree, then you know it's your deposits that's the problem. If you compare your checks and payments to what the bank says cleared and it's not the same, then you know you need to pay attention to the checks and payments side. That helps you from having to go through and unmarking them all and starting from scratch. So I'm going to hit the reconcile now button. And then it'll leave the BPU there. And of course, it's asking me again if I want to display it, print it, or close it. So I'm just going to close it. So I'm going to go through some of the reports because oftentimes you'll call up your accountant and your accountant's going to say, well, how'd you do this year? Do we need to pay any estimated payments? They were due today. Actually, if you haven't made them, you have time. And so they're going to say, well, print me out a P&L. I want to see what your net income is. So this is where you would come to run those reports or for your own benefit. So reports and company and financial is where I'm going to start, and profit and loss standard. And so you can create these P&Ls by any dates that you want. I am going to do it for this entire fiscal year because I've been all over the board with my dates. So the profit and loss is going to show me what income I brought in to date. So $2,450. Two things before I go on. Accrual and cash. Most of us are on the cash basis. We surely don't want to pay tax on anything that we haven't received yet. So if I have a bill out to a customer for $1,000 at the end of December and they don't pay me until January of next year, I don't want to pay tax on it in the 2020 if I didn't receive the money until 2021. So make sure you're using the right report basis, cash or accrual. Again, set that up in your preferences when you start up the business. And then you can customize your reports. And you can do the dates here as well. You can do the cash and accrual here. And then you can do all sorts of displays of the columns and filtering. And I'll show you a little bit more about that. But this is really kind of a unique way to set up some of your reports. If you're looking for things for if you have reps, customer reps, and it's based on what they have in sales, you can do a modify report just to do it by representative. So when you're looking at it, I have the $2,450 in income, and then all my expenses are down below. So computer, the contributions, I got a refund on my workers' comp, and then all those other expenses. So right now it's telling me I had $1,205.79 in total expenses, and that my net ordinary income is $1,244.21. I collected a whopping 45 cents in interest income for the year, and now I have a net income of $1,244.66. So as you see, if I'm going through, you see the magnifying glass. That means you can actually research, or I like to call it double down, and see the detail underneath it. So let's say I want to go look at computer and internet, because I know I have multiple transactions there. So if you just get the magnifying glass over the number and double click on the left key mouse, key number pad, it'll let you in. And then again, you can get the magnifying glass and go into the bills that are in there. So you can keep doubling down until you get to the originating invoice or bill or transaction that created it. So now I want to get back to that P&L, and I don't want to keep closing out all of these things. So remember earlier I showed you that the window allows you to see what you have wide open, transactions, the P&L. So I want to go back to that P&L. So this is just the P&L for the year. You can switch it for every month that you want. And then it'll give you details there. You can do total only. So let's say, let me go back to this 12/31/21 one. Now, if I want to look at it by month, I can do it by month, and it will give me a month one as well. So you can see the transactions happening in the month. You can memorize this if you want to. Say you, like I said earlier, you're manipulating it so that you can see what each one of your sales reps is doing for sales for the month. And then you can memorize this report, and it will bring up a box that says memorize report. You name it what you want it to say. So profit and loss, and I'm just going to say sales rep, and then I'm going to Jim. And then you can save it in a particular memorized report group. And I'm going to do it under customers, I guess, and then hit OK. So if I want to go find that report, reports, memorized reports, and then under customers, and there it is, profit and loss, sales rep, Jim. OK. So you can comment on your reports as well. I find this very helpful for my bookkeeping clients. I know that they're going to ask a question on something that might look a little out of sorts. So I'll make the comments, and what it does is it put little comment boxes next to it. And if you tap on it, it will bring you up a box, and I'll say, no consulting income, not until, you can write whatever you want to write, and then save it, and they can see it. So, and then I'm going to get out of there so that I can get back to where I was. And then I'm just going to save it. Hold on, I got a box over here. All right. And then again, you can click into here. So you can, multiple ways you can share this. You can print it as it is as the report. You can save it as a PDF. You can email it in PDF or Excel format, or you can actually send it to Excel in a new worksheet or an existing worksheet. You can hide your headers. You can also collapse things. So I have a client that doesn't like the board of directors to see all the minutia in the report because it's quite large. So we collapse the rows. And so what it does is it collapses anywhere you see an arrow, you can collapse it or you can expand it. So you can get this down to near nothing, or you can expand it out to all the detail in the world that you want to provide them. And then this is that refresh button I was telling you about earlier on, that if you don't have it automatically refresh, you'd have to keep hitting it, which is really not efficient. You should make sure that you hit that button in the comments or in the preferences. So a couple of things in the customize, you can go through and do filters. You can actually go through and do transactions. You can do transaction types. You can do names. Anything that you put in your QuickBooks, you can customize. And then you can customize your header and footer. Maybe you don't want to show them when you prepared the report. Maybe your boss asked you to run the P&L before you left work at 5 o'clock and you forgot, and you came back into the office and you wanted to print it and send it and put it on their desk before they got in the next morning. So you want to click off the time prepared. Or you might be like me, and I do a lot of bookkeeping, like, because as Richard had said, I'm the do the treasurer for a lot of places. I don't want to do date prepared, so I'm doing it at midnight on April 15th, and it's due on the 16th, so I take that off. So all sorts of things that you can do, and then you can do your fonts. If you want negative things in bright red, it'll show you, so it'll do anything that's negative over here. So you have all sorts of options you can do in there. So another one that you're going to want to use that's very familiar is your balance sheet. So the profit and loss gives you your net income or the profit of your business. Your balance sheet tells you what you own as assets. So your checking account, your fixed assets, and then what you owe others. So your liabilities, and then your equity. So the easiest way to explain this is when you go to the bank and you say, I want a home equity loan. And they're like, well, what's your equity in your house? And you're like, well, what's that mean? So what they're asking is, what's the value of your house minus what you owe on your house, any mortgages or line of credits? That's your equity in the house. It's the same thing in a business. What do you have into your business? What's your checking account, your savings account, your investments, your fixed assets, minus what you owe other people? That provides you with your equity. And your equity is also an accumulation of all of your net incomes and net losses over the life of your business, minus the money you've drawn out of your business, plus the money you've added into your business. So as I look at my balance sheet, I'm going to switch this to the end of the year because we were playing around with dates later on, and see it refreshed when I just hit the tab button. So at the end of the year, I have $3,500 in my checking account, and I have roughly $659 in furniture and equipment. So I have a total of just over $4,200 in total assets. And then I have on my credit card just shy of $1,500. I've put in $1,490. I have $1,500 in members equity. And so far to date, my net income is $1,244. So my total equity is $2,700. So whenever your equity is greater than your liabilities, that's a good thing. Remember the debt to equity formula that they always ask you when you're going for a credit card or a loan. That's where you would use that liability to the equity figure. So it's in your balance sheet. So again, you can double click on everything and get into the details of it. And it has the same features. So a couple other reports that I think you might want to know. Customers and receivables is your AR aging summary. If the gentleman hadn't paid their bills, they would show up here, showing that they owed me some money. And so if I did this date for, let's see, I think the 10th. Nope, all right, let's see. Trying to remember when they paid me. So let me go back to this window. Nope, that's not going to work. I'll go to the profit and loss and 115. Okay. They must have paid on 115. That doesn't help me. All right, so let's try. Let me look at John. So see, I'm going back through looking. Oh, so he paid on 111. So I can't go back and fix it. So let me put in another one just for an example. So I'm going to create an invoice. We'll do another one to John and we'll do some business consulting for 2 hours at the rate of 175. And it's been a pleasure. And let's make this date 3/31 and save and close. And then I'm going to go to the window to the AR aging. And I'm going to switch this back to the end of the year. And then it'll show John Miller owing the $350. Similarly, I'm going to enter a bill. And, so here's a perfect example. So let's say my Spectrum bill is always $142.65. The last thing I want to do is keep entering this. So I'm going to memorize my Spectrum bill. And so you'll get a box that says memorize transaction. You name it, whatever you want to name it. I'm going to call it, I'm going to leave it as Spectrum. And then I'm going to say automate the transaction entry, which means every time it reaches the date that it needs to be recorded, QuickBooks is going to give me a screen and it's going to ask, do you want us to record this transaction? And I'm going to say yes. I don't have to go record it, but QuickBooks asks you just to make sure that you still want to have those transactions entered. So I am going to go over here and I'm going to have it do it every month. Since I already got my January bill, I'm going to have the next date be February 5th. And then the number remaining can be left open. So it will continue to do it till you stop or delete it, or you can put a number in there. So maybe you know it's only going to be for the end of the year. And so you may just want to put in number remaining 10 because you already have one in. This counts as the second one, and then you want 10 more for the 12. If you use your payables to run your cash flow, you may want to enter the days in advance so that it shows up on your cash flow transaction. So you have ample time to put it into the payment plan. So I'm going to hit OK. And so now it's memorized it. And if you want to know where that is, it's lists and memorize transactions. And there it is. And so it'll show you that it's going to show up monthly. And on the next date, when I open up my QuickBooks on 2/5, it will give me that error. So now I'm going to go back to this enter bills again. And then let's say, actually I'll go over here to credit card instead because I like this suggestion. Let's say you entered a credit card purchase and you don't want to have to enter it back. I'm going to do the find buttons up top. You can go forward and backwards. And let's say I have another office max charge and it's split between office supplies and furniture and equipment, but it had a lot of the similar activities in there. I'm going to hit create a copy, and then it's going to create another one. All you do is switch the dates. So let's say I do 4/30/2021, and it's $53. So let's say it's $153, and then I'm going to put $100 in furniture and equipment. And then I'm just going to hit save and close as a refund. So then you can use that function either. So create a copy if you don't want to keep typing in it. I use it for my invoicing, especially when I have clients that I have multi-line invoices. So this time of the year is a perfect example. I'm busy doing W-2s and 1099s and their month-end bookkeeping. So I might have a three-lined invoice for them, but I have specific wording particular to that customer. So I go in and I find their last year's invoice, I double click on it, bring it up, and then I hit create a copy. So then all I have to do is change the date. If I have a year in there that said I did this for 2019, now I'm going to switch it to 2020, and then I get everything all ready, and then I hit save and close. And then I haven't spent all that time going through and manually entering all of that activity again. So memorize transaction, creates it so it'll do it all over for you, how frequently you want it to happen, and then create a copy. I also use the memorize feature for invoicing for my monthly bookkeepers, because oftentimes it's the same monthly charge. Instead of having to enter the invoice in every month, it automatically does it, and it automatically emails it to the customer when I set it up, because it'll say you have emails that need to be sent out, and then I send them out that way. So the other report would be the vendors and payables, and that's that AP aging summary. So this will tell you what you owe people. So I owe Spectrum and I owed STG as of January 15th because we didn't pay them until later on. So again, a very simple report for you to review. There's lots of reports in here. Some you may use, some you may never use. You can get in and play around with them, of course. The ones that I use the most are the ones I showed you, the P&L. I often use the year-to-date comparison. That allows you to pick a month and then do it for the year. So if I do 1/1 of 21 to, I'll pick a different date. Let's say 3/1, 0/31/21 to 0/31/21. And it refreshes. It will do March in one column for me, and then it will do January through March in the second column. Also the previous year comparison it will also do. I like to do that when a company's been in business for a while, because then it's easy for me to look at things and see if something's not right. Maybe it's recorded in the wrong spot. Let's see how activity was last year to this year. And then the same thing with the balance sheet. You definitely want to use standard. Detail will give you everything, and it's like a general ledger. You don't want it, it's very long. And then the previous year comparison as well. And then one other thing that some clients use is this cash flow forecast. And what it does is if you put in your invoicing properly and you put in your bills for your vendors, it will actually tell you what monies you should be receiving in with your terms that you set, and then what you have to pay out of your bills in those particular weeks, what's sitting in your bank account, and then what your inflows and outflows are, so whatever your projected balance is. And then the other ones I use for my monthly bookkeeping clients is I like to do this deposit detail. It just shows you what deposits were for that particular month, who they came from, where they went to, and what kind of deposit they were. And then I also like to do the check detail, because a lot of my clients, I do all of the check writing for them. And so it's kind of a proof for them to see, oh yeah, they provide me with the permission to pay those invoices or those bills, but some of them of course come out of their checking account automatically. So this way they don't have to look at the bank account and say, geez, what did we write that particular month? I think I might have done everything in October. There. So then it'll provide you with the checks that were written either by check or by bill payment. Oh, but you can do budgets in QuickBooks. I won't go over that today. That's a little bit more of an intense transaction, but you can put in budgets. That's a good feature to have. It helps you to keep track of what you're spending. Any questions right now before I kind of take a summary and then go through a few more things?
I think I actually skipped one that I didn't see. So Luan, this is a little bit from the previous topic. She asked, is setting the bank account thing, the bank account section, this via key QuickBooks is preferred over setting it over your bank website. Yeah, that's.
Oh, so doing the web
Mhm.
services versus doing the download, the bank feed? Is that,
I'm assuming that's what she means. That's also my understanding. But Luan, if you can clarify your question, that would be great.
Thank you. What I'm curious about, so I pay, can you hear me?
It sounds a little
Karina, I think you have to mute yourself.
okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, so what I'm wondering is right now I pay my bills online at M&T. Is there a benefit to doing all the transactions in my transfers over to QuickBooks? Is there a benefit to doing it on QuickBooks instead of at the M&T site?
So not really. So you can do it one of two ways. So like I do the same way as you do it through my KeyBank account. And then what I do at the end of every month is I go to KeyBank and I just drop down the QBO file, the bank feed file, and then I import it into my QuickBooks. I do have 3 clients that use the bank feed. They like it. It seems to me that it's a personal preference, I guess. They like it because they write a lot of checks via the mail and they don't like the bank bill pay feature in their particular bank.
Yeah.
I like the bank bill pay feature at KeyBank, so they're already set up for me. So I guess if I was starting a new business and I didn't have my bank bill pay set up at all, I probably would go do the bank feed because you still have to set vendors up one way or the other. So if you have to set them up in QuickBooks to record keep, you might as well set it up in QuickBooks to feed into your bank feed, and then you're not duplicating your work. Does that help?
Thank you so much.
Yep. All right, so I'm gonna go through a couple things. I went through the basics that I normally go through. So some of the other features in here, like I like to go through file and then sending your forms. You can, hold on. This is where you can set up your QuickBooks, your email file. So it'll send forms and it'll tell you you can send your emails. So this is where if you wanted to send your invoices, you can send them through here. You can change this invoice or the body of the message that goes out with your invoices. For a couple of my clients, I do their quarterly billings and that's how I send them out to their customers. And so it's very easy to do. And like I said earlier, I like everything to be paperless, and we're in such a great electronic world that you might as well utilize it and help the post office because they're in trouble, I hear, from reading the newspaper. So maybe we need to give them a break from Christmas and COVID. And so once they get caught back up, maybe we could go back to the mail. You can use your register for the bank. You can use it here or out of the bank. And it just looks like the register you get at the bank account. And I'm looking to see why it didn't pop up. It's probably sitting on the screen and now I can't find it. All right. So it comes up just like you get at the bank. It has the line items and it just looks like that nice little paper flip folder. And you can go into each one of the transactions by double clicking on it. Transfer funds, that was one thing that I didn't go over. So if you have multiple bank accounts and you're transferring from a savings to a checking account, you can do your transfers here. I suggest to my clients that have payroll and sales tax, if you're in business for the first time, It's wise to set up accounts to track your sales tax and payroll taxes. The last thing you want to do is leave them in your general bank account and then go spend the money that you need to be submitting to the authorities, because they frown upon that when they don't get their money. So let's say that I have employees and I want to transfer my payroll taxes for this week's payroll to my payroll account. So I'm going to type in the KeyBank checking account, and then I'm going to send it to my KeyBank payroll account. And of course, I don't have the payroll account set up, so I'm going to do so. It already selects it as a bank. The few things you can transfer to are loans and credit cards and banks. So it sets up my bank account and I hit save and close. And then all you have to do is punch in the dollar amount that you're going to transfer. So I'm going to say, I'm going to do an even $1,000 for taxes. And it will tell you what your account balance is in your checking and in your payroll. And then you can put whatever memo you want to. I'm going to do period week ending 4/30/21 and then hit save and close. Yes, and it's in advance. So I'm going to go back through. It has a calculator. If you don't already have a calculator on your computer, or if you don't have one on your desk, you can use the calculator that's in there. I already showed you how to use it inside the forms. That's kind of a nice, oh, so I wanted to do the find feature. So Control F, and here's the advanced. So I'm going to go looking for something. So I know that I entered in contribution for $100. So I'm going to go and punch the bubble for the equals to and put in 100. I've already selected amount over here on the left-hand side, and then I'm going to hit the find button. So I have a check for the Humane Society, and then I have a credit card charge, a credit from Office Max. And so with a check, you'll notice that there's two in there. I didn't write two checks to the Chautauqua Humane Society. What QuickBooks is showing me is that $100 came out of my KeyBank checking account, and then $100 was posted to contributions. So now that I'm here, I'm going to go in and click on it, and it will bring me, oop, I must have been in a check, so I'm going to save that changes. And it'll bring me back to my Humane Society check. So if I need to make any changes as far as the memo is concerned, I've already cleared it in the bank. So if you are wondering if a check has cleared, QuickBooks puts all of these nice little like stamps on everything. So this has cleared the bank. So you don't want to mess with it. So don't make any changes, or you're going to ruin your bank reconciliations that have already been done. But it does let you know that it's been cleared. And again, the window feature, if I wanted to go back to find, and you could go through and do something by name. So let's say I want to see what I bought from Office Max today or this year. And it has all names. You can do multiple names. So if you do multiple names, it brings you up a screen and you have to start clicking along all of the names. I'm going to pick just the name right from the screen here. And then I'm going to hit the find number. Oh, and then I have the amount of $100 in there. So it's not going to find it because I want to look at all. So if you go and take the 100 and then you have to reset it to get rid of it. So I'm going to go back. See, I try to teach you all the things that can possibly come up while you're doing it. And then hit find. So that'll show you everything that I did from John. Of course, you could also do this with a report. And you could go to customers and receivable and do a transaction list by customer. And then this shows you everything that you did for this time frame. So I'm going to show you a little customizing in here. So I'm going to do it for this fiscal year. And then I only want to see what John Miller did business with me. So I'm going to go to customize and then go to the filter here. And then I'm going to scroll down to name, drop down, and then do John and hit OK. And then there's the report for the customer. As you notice in this particular report, it does not sum all of the transactions, So if I'm using this, I oftentimes send it to Excel, and then I can use the sum feature in Excel. Other lists, I'm trying to go through. Oh, the templates, again, like I said, you can adjust those. That's something kind of fun if you like to get involved in that. Otherwise, you get kind of a boring little invoice that's QuickBooks generated. I picked this service invoice and this one. If I switched it to the professional one, and then we did a print. Yes. And then I just want to preview it. And then that's what it looks like. Pretty vanilla. You can put color here, you can put color down here, you can make lots of columns, you can put a note down at the bottom, you can move all of this stuff around. If you go into the template, it gives you like a little grid, and you can make it real fancy if you want to. Company, this is where you would do your planning and your budgeting in here. So you'd set up your budgets. Again, I set your closing date. Oh, if you set up your company wrong and you need to switch some things, or you need to add some more information, you go into my company, and then it'll have all of your information here. You just hit the little pencil or the edit, and you can go in and fill in the gaps. It also will tell you when you set up your account on Intuit, you can manage it from here, and it'll take you to Intuit. It will also give you your license and product number on your QuickBooks account. Under company as well, you can enter vehicle mileage. If you're using your vehicle in your business and you want to track it here or track it wherever, just remember you need to track it for your taxes. So wherever you decide, you might as well do it while if you're doing everything else in QuickBooks, you can put it in there as well. It has a lot of nice to-do lists and reminders in there as well. Trying to go through a couple of the things. I try to do things in order and then go back and try to help you out with things I think you might run into. QuickBooks is really nice with their payroll if you like it. Otherwise, use a payroll service outside. I recommend that you don't try to do your own payroll unless you have experience in payroll. It's changing daily and it's not easy to keep up on. I do payroll for 2 clients and that's it. And they're all salaried employees because it's not a moneymaker for me. And it's also a high risk area that I prefer to stay away from. That's trying to think of other things that might be in here that you guys might want to see. Oh, let me do a credit and then show you how to apply it. So I think I have a bill. So let's go into pay bills first. Nope. So I'm going to enter a bill. Oh, I just didn't finish doing it. All right. So let me make that larger. So let's create a copy and hit save and close. I think I did. All right. Nope, I didn't finish that. All right. So enter a bill. I'm going to go back to Spectrum, create a copy. And then I'm going to change the date to the 3/5 and switch the invoice number to be something different and let it be. And then I'm going to hit save and new. And let's say throughout the month, I changed my services on my Spectrum bill and they gave me a credit on it. Similarly to the credit card, you have 2 bubbles, the bill and the credit. So you just need to make sure that you have the right one selected. And then I am going to select the vendor Spectrum. And then I'm going to pick the same date, or maybe I'll do the 10th. And let's say they gave me the credit for fax. And they gave me $10 off. Oops. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. And it'll go right to computer and internet because that's where Spectrum comes up. And if I hit save and close. So now I'm at the bill pay, which, and if you don't remember, I'll get out of here to remind you, vendor, pay bills, and it'll show up Spectrum. So now if I click on Spectrum and highlight it, and I can click the button as well, total credits available shows up down below. If I hit set credits, nice little box will show up and it'll have a credit there. QuickBooks will normally just allocate it and select the ones that are available. If you have multiples, be careful that you're collecting the right ones or selecting the right ones. And then if you also have a discount, it would be over here. So the $10 would be assigned, and then I would hit done. So now I have the original $142.65. I have credits used of $10, and that's my bill payment of $132.65 to be paid on my credit card. So if I go to the bill, just for example, and let's say it's not net 30, it's 1% off for 1% off in 10 days, net 30. And I'm going to hit save and close and change my transaction. And so now I'm here, and now I have a discount available. So if I hit set discount, it's going to say you have $1.43 as a discount, and then it wants to have a discount account. So you can do, I like to put vendor discounts. People get confused with purchase discounts, or you could use purchase discounts or sales discounts. So sales discounts is what you give to your customers. Vendor discounts is what you get. Purchase discounts are yours. Sales discounts, you know, customer blah, same thing. So just make sure you keep them separated. It's not in the account list. And so I'm going to use vendor discounts, and I'm going to put it to expense because vendors are what I use for purchases. So I really truly want to see what my true bottom line expenses are. And then I'm going to hit done. And now I have the original invoice, the discount, and the credit. And now I'm only going to pay $131.22 on my credit card, and then hit credit. And the same thing would happen on the customer side if you provided discounts to your customers. Setting up finance charges are in there as well, so you can do that transaction as well. I won't get into that. That's usually a preference that people choose to do or not. I feel like I went through a lot of stuff. Any other questions? Anything else that someone wants to see that you have a problem with in your business?
I have a question here from Greg and Carmen. They are asking if there is anything regarding gas mileage or calculators for gas mileage.
Okay, so if you go down to company and enter vehicle mileage, you would actually enter your company information in there. And then it'll just put the mileage. It does not actually calculate how much the mileage is for you. So it'll just track the miles. If you're going to assign it to a customer, then you need to set up an item in your lists and do mileage here, and then put it the IRS standard rate as your rate. So if that's what you do, like another charge, and I'm not sure if I'm going through and answering all the right questions, but I'm going to give you all the options. Mileage. And then you could put in here the amount, and honestly, I don't remember what it is for this year. It could be 57.5 cents. And then you can put it to whatever you want to. I often put out of pocket. As one, or you could do mileage reimbursed by client, and then set that up as an income. And then when you went to bill them, you would go in and put in an invoice. And then you would do mileage. And then you would put in the quantity, so 50 miles, and then it would calculate that way. So you could, if you're doing it for a customer, that would be the easiest way. Otherwise, just tracking your mileage for your tax return would be beneficial. I don't know why else you would want to try and figure out the dollar amount before the end of tax season, I guess. To help.
Thank you. Also, we have one question. Let me see, because I just got like a couple more. This is regarding PayPal transfers into account. Luana is asking, how do I chart the transfer without duplicating my customer order revenues?
Okay, so if you're doing the PayPal transfer on your own PayPal, how you would do it in the QuickBook is just doing the transfer funds here. So let me see if I can get this screen to come over. If you're going to do you would do from PayPal here, if you had a PayPal account. And then you would transfer it to your checking account. And then whatever the dollar amount is. And so oftentimes you are only going to transfer over the net figure if you get charged. So you would put in your transfer over. So you have a couple transactions that you would be doing if you're using the PayPal. You want to do the transfer funds from PayPal to your checking account. You also want to make sure that you've gone up to the customer and received the payment in, and you selected the PayPal over here. And if I don't want to add it, but you'd put PayPal here, and then it would show the PayPal. So this would take it and put it into the undeposited funds. So I'm just going to use this, you would use the gift. Oops, let's not get in there. Then you would have to go into banking and make the deposit. And it would have shown up as a PayPal transfer from John Miller. And then what I end up doing with my clients that use the PayPal is, and I'll just make an example. So let's say John Miller has already paid us the $200 and it shows up in this account. So I'm just going to pretend that it came over here. So I'm going to do John Miller. I'm going to ignore those for right now. And it should come from undeposited funds. Oh yeah, it won't let me do that. So let me do tax prep. And let's say you paid me $200. You have the fees for the PayPal fees. And so I like to call them transaction fees. So I'm just going to set them up as an expense. And so instead of receiving the $200, PayPal takes out the 3%. So I'm just going to do minus 200 times 0.03, come up with $6. It's probably not that, but just for an example of using the calculator. And that's what's going to get deposited into my PayPal account from PayPal because they're taking the fee. And then you would do that transfer of $194. So you start off with the receive of the payment, and then make the deposit, and then do the transfer from the PayPal to your checking account. So if you do web services through QuickBooks, you can do all of this, well, the transfer on the QuickBooks. Otherwise, you've got to get out and do your PayPal because you don't link your PayPal to your QuickBooks. So.
All right, there are a couple follow-up questions. One is, if you have external payroll and it syncs with QuickBooks, how do you reconcile?
Okay, so Paychex or ADP or whoever you're using usually drops a general ledger down into your system. And so it would show up as a general ledger. So it would come in one of the journal entries here. And of course, we only have this one here, but it would show up. And when it drops into your QuickBooks, at one point you would have set up your payroll service to agree to your QuickBooks accounts. And you would just go into your banking and then reconcile your account, and your transactions would be in either your payroll account or your checking account, and then you would click them off that way. But the transaction should be on the screen if it's done properly. I hope that helps.
The other question is also, if you are a retail/restaurant and do inventory via third-party software, for example, POS, do you just do journal entries for inventory value at EOM?
Yeah, so you can do the journal entries for the end of the month or end of the month for the inventory. That would be fine. Unless the system keeps track of your inventory, and then it would sync into the QuickBooks. So I'm guessing it doesn't. If they're asking that question, it must only bring over their sales.
Right, thank you.
Yep.
Those are all the questions we have for now. So, yeah.
Gee, I tried to go slow. Right? So I normally do online. I usually try to get into online. So if you want, I can pull over online and kind of give people a look at what online is.
Yes, I'm just reading that some people have the online version. So sure, let's do that.
Okay, so let me get into my version and then I will pull it over to that screen.
That sounds good. Do you want me to stop your screen sharing?
Nope, I'm going to pull it over. I'm going to get rid of this one and then I'm going to pull over the online one in just a second.
All right, sounds good.
I have to log in first.
Perfect. In the meantime, I am going to, oh, you're ready?
Nope, you can keep talking.
Okay. So I am going to put in the chat our contact details. You from the Small Business Development Center, you can see our phone number there, and also you'll see a link to our directory. So you will be able to see all the advisors that we have in the center and in their specialties. So if you are curious about joining the program and get an advisor, please give us a call, or you can directly email the advisor that you feel is most appropriate for you. And we do have a question.
Okay.
There might be. What are the extra features you get with the desktop that are not offered with the online version?
Okay, so the reason I like desktop more than online is in desktop, you can have multiple screens open. So like I can have all of these activities going on and I can flip back and forth. And online, you have to close out, get back in. So online to me isn't as efficient as an accountant, but that doesn't necessarily mean as a user of it, it's not something that you should shy away from. You just have to realize that when you're in a transaction, similarly to like when I was in the bank reconciliation and I needed to add another check, you can sometimes do that into the online and it will bring you back to the reconciliation. Other times it bounces you out of the bank reconciliation. You have to start from scratch. It's harder to search for items in the online. I think it is maybe the search engine, and I know they're working on it. It does give you some features, but there's not like a control F. You have to do it by line item. I still like the find feature on the online, but I love it on the desktop. Trying to think of some of the other things that I think the ease of using the desktop is it's not so intimidating to someone that's not accounting related and or technologically savvy. I think the online requires you to be a little bit more in tune with the uses of some menu items that the home base on desktop allows you to kind of go with the flow. You have to, I just think the desktop one's a little bit more user-friendly for the non-accounting, non-tech savvy person. So I hope that helps. All right, I'm gonna pull over. I'm gonna use, let's see. All right, I'm gonna download this one. And then so this this is the online version. And so your menu items are over to your left-hand side, obviously. And so instead of having the menus, there's two things that you use. You use this new feature, and that's where your menu items come down versus the desktop. So it puts it into the columns of customers, vendors, employees, and other. And then you have the gear. And then that's the other items that are related that are across the board on the desktop. So your company, the chart of accounts is in there. Lists are here. So you have your lists and your recurring transactions, and then your tools if you're going to reconcile and do any of the budgeting aspects. So it's really a matter of getting familiarized with the different versions. This one, it's fairly specific, like you go to a certain spot and find it, whereas the desktop, you can find one of these features in a different location. So I use this a lot for my clients use it because we can be in different places and online, and whereas the desktop kind of restricts you if you don't have the access like I do, log me in, or a Citrix server, or some of my clients just don't want to do their bookkeeping, and so I do it in-house and they don't ever want to see the QuickBooks. So desktop works for me, whereas online, remember the one downside to that is if you are looking to minimize your costs, online is a monthly charge, whereas you can buy the desktop for a set fee and keep it for a couple years. So some people get on the online and they don't like it, and then they switch back to desktop. I've never had someone do the opposite. Like I've never had someone go from desktop to online because they just get so familiarized with the desktop. So I oftentimes, the one thing I like in the online that is not a feature in the desktop is when you're entering credit card charges, it actually lets you use expense versus the check. Even though it shows up as an expense on the desktop side, it doesn't say it. So here you would use the payee again and select it. And I'm just going to do 360 graphics. And then instead of using the checking account, you can select a credit card that's in here. And I'm not going to make any transaction because this is actually a client's file and I don't want to mess up their books. So you would do the same thing and you would enter in advertising here, and so it would pop up. So it formulates the same way. And you can put in the same descriptions and the dollar amounts would show up, and then you do save and close here, or you can do save and new. You can hit save. You can make it recurring if you want to, and then you can clear and cancel it. Yes. If you wanted to do the bank reconciliation, you're going to come here. And it's very similar to the same screen. It asks you what account you want to reconcile. You pick the account, and then you can hit resume reconciling. And then there's your difference that you want to come to 0. And then these are all the activities that are on there. Rid of the little memos. Where the check marks are the ones that you've cleared. So you go through and you can do this in the desktop too. You can do it in numerical order. You can do it in descending numerical order. You can do it by account, by reference number if you wanted to do by the checks. You can do that on the desktop too. I didn't show you that. Same thing here with payroll or your reports. I mean, the reports show up. Sometimes they're in favorites and you can star them. Otherwise, they kind of do them in different transactions, business overview, your profit and loss. So like if I did the profit and loss comparison, this is the same here. You can format it again. So let's say it was last month, or no, let's do last year. This year, let's see, let's do last year. And then it's on cash, and then you just hit the run report. And then it will tell me, you know, again, same thing. What's your income? What's your expenses? How's the bottom line? And you can, again, double click on the numbers. It just has the hand there. And then it gives you all the transactions, and then you can look at the transactions again. So very similar to the desktop. So everything I showed you on desktop is applicable on the online. It's just a matter of where do you find it, because it's the gear or the add button. And so here, this is where you would search for things. And well, there's no Control F. And so I like the advanced search on the find on the online. And I always use this amount line or total. And then that's where I would enter my $100 and hit the search. And then it would show me what's ever in there. And then you can click on them as well and see the detail to those. Let's see. Oh, and you, again, on the other one on the desktop, you could do your dashboard as well. And it shows you all of those important things that you want to know. And then this is kind of like the home base that the desktop was as well. You can, of course, with the online, you can always add your accountant, and obviously. And so I can get in and see what they're doing on any given moment, or if they're entering something and they entered it and they think they did it wrong, they can ask me to jump in and look at something to make sure and correct it for them. Same thing here again, account and settings, your manager users are in there, your chart of accounts is in there. Chart of accounts is a little different in the online. So it sets it up in the column format. And then over here, they do things as where we had tabs in the desktop, they have the actions over to the right side with drop down. So you can either view the register, which means you could look at the checking account in its entirety. This is where you would connect for the web banking. You can edit the account from here, or you can make it inactive, or you could run a report. So again, it's really where you're finding the things on the online. You just have to kind of search around if you haven't been familiar with it. Same thing with the lists. The lists are here, and then it gives you what you have. Recurring transactions would be like our memorized transaction list on the desktop. The chart of accounts, of course, we just looked at. This is products and services is your items list that's on the desktop. So they just sometimes call them different names. So don't get too confused when you're looking at those. Again, there's your product and services, and they say them again. So if you do all lists, they have them in 2 places as well. And then you can also attach to items in your QuickBooks on the online as you do the desktop, set up your terms and your payment methods. Importing and exporting your data. Of course, if you're using online, you don't need to do the company file to your accountant. You just invite your accountant to your QuickBooks. And then you can delete them if you don't want them on there anymore. So that's how you share it with your accountant, and we can see real life stuff that's going on. And then we can close your company file on 12/31 after we've made all its the reconciling entries. I think that's it on the gear. So let me go back over here. Again, the invoices are similar. So you have your customer here, you set them up, your customer email is in there. How are they paying? If they're going to do it by cards or transfer, if you have that option. And then you do your billing address. And so the terms, so when we do a quick add or a setup on the desktop, you're actually doing it on the screen for the online. You can set them up. So I'll put this one in here. There we go. So then it'll pop up and it'll ask you if you want to put in your details. And then there's the screen that you would get like you do on the desktop. So I would fill in all of my information, billing, what are my notes, my tax info, if I have anything, what's my preferred paying, billing, attachments, the language, any additional information. So it's very similar to the desktop. It's really your preference as to which version you like the best. And then you just this is your invoice. You start putting activity on here and you put in your product and service and then the description and the quantity and the rate. And then you can print it and preview whatever you have that's sitting there. So you invoicing, setting up the invoices, you're kind of limited as to what you can use as an invoice. So the fancy part gets a little bit trickier. So if you want fancy, you have to do a little bit more work. You can do your month-end review here, which you can also do on the desktop too, but it lets you kind of go through and look to see what's in progress. Same thing with the bank feeds, is the same thing on the desktop versus the online version. Let's see, on the new. Bills are the same as well. You can enter your bills in here. Same thing, vendor. If you set it up and you had a new one, I'll just set myself up. Oh, nope, I'm already in there. Let's see. Oops, darn it. She uses the same ones I use. There we go. So Spectrum, you'd set up the same thing again. Put in all that activity that's in there, track the payments for the 1099. So it kind of makes it a little bit more on the front page for what they allow you to use for the setup for the vendor. And then your default expense, instead of having tabs, it's right here on one screen. Again, you can break it down. And then if you have to add more, then it'll just add lines, clear lines, delete a line. So again, it's just what your preferences and what appeals to you. I will say I find that younger, more computer efficient people like the online. I would say people who are not really fond of the computer or software programs like the desktop. I think the online version kind of scares them, getting into it, getting around into the different areas, afraid it's going to crash on them. Also online, if you're not doing work in it, it will log you out, whereas the desktop stays open all of the time. I think that's probably one of my biggest complaints for the non-savvy technical people, because then they have to keep logging in, and it does it to me because I get sidetracked or I get a client come in and then I've got to log back in as well. But it's also a safety feature, so someone's not hacking into my computer.
We have 2 questions. So
Yep.
one is, can you have multiple companies under an online account?
Yes. So yeah, you see, you can. So I can show you, like here, if I go into, I'm in my account. So here's all of my clients that are on there. So you can have as many as you want.
Perfect. And then is it possible to run a report on a specific line of item from invoices, for example, shipping income?
So yes, you want to run a report that just shows the items, like a particular item?
Looks like that's the question, yes.
Yeah, okay. So then you want to do product service list. And then you're going to run, so if you want to run the product services, oh no, hold on, sorry, back one. You'll see that I run more on QuickBooks on the desktop than I do on the online. Sales by product service detail, there we go. But they're the same. So you just have to get around a little bit more. Thinking I'm clicking it, there we go. So here's the sales by product service detail. Apparently she's not doing anything yet this year. Let me, last year, and then run the report. And I want to do cash. All right. Thinking that she doesn't set them up that way. So let me go here. Then I can show you from here. right, so. So here's a sales by product service. So here's furniture installation. So you could run it by date, by, and you can filter this as well. So that has the group by a product or a service, and you can do it by the dates or the SKU. Or you can customize it just like you do on the desktop. You can do it by the period time, and then you can do it by these products, or you can filter again. Down here are all those things that I would do on the desktop version. So, and then just hit the run report.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I don't think we have more questions. If you have any other questions, this is the moment to write them down, or you can unmute yourself and just go ahead.
I think I know what, we never took any breaks. So I usually do a person. I thought about that just now. I'm like, wow, oh wait, I never give anyone a break. Nor myself.
We do have another question. I have, David says, I have issues reconciling my accounts. Are there tools or tricks I can use to assist in reconciling? Also, I operate 2 companies and currently have 2 online accounts. I was under the impression this was necessary. Is there a downside to combine the accounts?
No, so when you set up the, let's address that one first. So when you set up your Intuit account, you put in your email address and set up your account, and then you can put the companies underneath that email. And so like mine, I have them all underneath my email, and then I have another email where I have other clients under that. So you should be able to put all of your companies under the same email, and then like I'm doing, just drop them down and pull them out. So I'm not sure what online you're using. Maybe you're using like the basic and not the multiple company one. So I would talk to Intuit for the version, I guess. Like I use an accounting version, but I also have clients that use online that use multiple companies. So just verify you're set up properly and you're under the same email account. Reconciling tricks. So other than the bank statement and checking your bank statement to what the summary numbers are on your reconciliation, if you're off by a small amount, if you add the digits of the difference together and divide by 9, you transposed a number. So that's a little trick. So for example, if you're off by $123 and you add 1 + 2 + 3, that's 6. And then divide it by 9, that's not a transposition. But if it's $333 and you add 3 + 3 + 3, that's 9, divide it by 9, that's a transposition. So then you have to go looking for something that's in the wrong spot. So you put a 5 in front of a 6 and it should be a 6 and a 5 or whatever it could possibly be. Other than comparing it to the bank statements, that's really, I mean, those are the tricks that I use with bank reconciliations, is do one side at a time, do the deposits first, do the checks second, and then you can look to see where your issues are and then put them in numerical order to verify. So my part-timer says I'm a bank rec whiz because I think if you step away from it and then go back, you'll see something that you might not have seen before. And that's easy for me because I just walk away and blank out. So
good. Luani is asking, how do I run a report on New York State sales?
Okay, so you'd have to have sales tax set up. And so on, I think these guys have sales tax. So on online, it's taxes. And oh, nope, they don't have it set up that way. So online, it would be taxes, and then it would set up to be your sales tax. On the QuickBooks, that I was using earlier. Let me open that back up and bring it over. Oh, nope, I shut it down, I think. Oh, nope, there. So I would have to make it a preference. So let me go in and do that. Oh, yeah. Oh, crud. Great. Now it's on another screen. All right, this is getting frustrating. There we go. Just going to use all of my key features that I know how to get out of the system, because I cannot find where that open screen is on one of my monitors. Wait, is it behind? Let's see if it's behind this one. Nope. All right, now I don't know where it went to, so that's not good. So I can't get in. So get out of here. Oh, escape. Now I'm really locked in. All right, so I'll go back to here. In the desktop version, you would actually put in the vendor activity, and you would go to print sales tax. And so it will run you a report under vendor, and then sales tax, and then sales tax liability. On the online version, if you had sales tax set up, you would go into taxes here, and then it would actually show you a version of the sales tax liability, your sales tax payments, and it would have your sales collected and the sales tax that's due. You just need to make sure you switch it to the quarter that you need. So, and I'm not going to set it up on here because they don't have sales tax. Trying to see. I thought for sure these guys would have it open. So this one is empty. Yep, that one's not going to work.
Kelly, maybe we can share the instructions for these.
Yeah, that would be easier because I'm locked into this one and I have no idea where the screen is.
Yeah, oh my gosh, technology can be amazing, but also, you know, sometimes
yeah,
it's just
annoying.
And that's okay. So yes, it looks like we don't have further questions, and I am going to pass it to Michael because he's going to help us closing a little bit. Oh, I think you're muted.
Sorry, Michael, I called you Richard. For some reason, I thought you were Richard, and I went, that's not his name.
Yeah, I don't think we can hear you, Michael. Yeah. Or is that just me? No, it might be your microphone might be not connected or something. It's okay, I'll do it. So, Kelly, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and responding to all the questions. We really appreciate your time. And we really appreciate everybody's time that you dedicate to be here with us, to joining today. Please, everybody, don't forget to respond to our survey. And I'm gonna put the link in the chat. You are also going to receive an email from us asking you to respond to it. That can only help us to get better. And also, if you have interest of joining our program and having an advisor, I also put in the chat there more information for you guys. I want to thank everybody for time. And if anybody has any other questions, so Kelly, thank you very much for sharing your contact information.
Yep.
You can reach out. Please give Kelly a round of applause because she did an amazing job today. Really, really appreciate
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. And if there is no other questions, well, we hope you all have an amazing day. We're going to stick around in case someone has some questions, but we know some people have to go. But thank you very much, everybody. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful weekend, and please reach out in case you have further questions. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, we're seeing people now. Yep, if you have questions, you can stick around.
Yep. I still don't know where that screen is.
Jesus, I can't believe that happened to me too. That happens to me too. And I honestly, sometimes I just don't know how to fix
Well, and it's strange because the screen that I'm working off of with the camera is a laptop. And then I have a 24-inch, two 24 inches. And you would think on the 24 inches, it wouldn't get lost. And that's where it kept going to, was the third screen over. And then I'd have to pull it all the way back over to the laptop.
I can only picture you like in a command center, you know, with different screens and manage it all.
Hi, Sue.
Hi, Sue. Oh, you're muted, Sue.
Oh, Sue finally joined us.
I did, but you know, once you got rocking, I just kept my video and sound off. I was so impressed.
Thank
This
you.
was spectacular, Kelly. Oh my God. And Dee, thanks for setting it up. Karina, thanks
You're
for
welcome.
thanks for saving the